Prosecutor Thompson stood up in the courtroom and pointed accusingly. "This woman is faking her disability. She can walk," he shouted. 34-year-old Maria Santos quietly stood up and removed her prosthetic leg. At that moment, everyone would see what she'd lost in Afghanistan and the Purple Heart that came with it. Because sometimes the greatest ignorance is questioning someone's pain. Welcome to Hidden Legends. Tell us which city you're watching from and subscribe if you believe that some sacrifices deserve respect, not skepticism. Maria's story will show you why assumptions about invisible wounds can be devastatingly wrong. The Los Angeles County Courthouse was busy with its usual morning docket when Maria Santos arrived for her disability benefits hearing. Walking with a slight limp that was barely noticeable, she made her way through security and took her seat in the waiting area outside courtroom 7. To casual observers, Maria looked like any other 34-year-old woman dealing with bureaucratic procedures. What they couldn't see was the titanium and carbon fiber prosthetic leg hidden beneath her dress pants, or the psychological scars from an IED explosion that had changed her life forever. Maria had served 3 tours in Afghanistan as a combat medic with the 101st Airborne Division, treating wounded soldiers under fire and earning the respect of everyone in her unit. Her medical training had saved dozens of lives, but it couldn't save her own leg when a roadside bomb tore through her convoy in Kandahar province. The explosion had killed 2 of her fellow soldiers and left Maria with injuries that ended her military career and began a long journey of physical and emotional recovery. The hearing was supposed to be routine. Maria's disability claim had been approved by the Veterans Administration, but a recent audit had flagged her case for review. Someone had reported seeing her walking without obvious difficulty, questioning whether she was truly disabled or attempting to defraud the system. The anonymous tip had triggered an investigation that brought Maria to court to defend benefits she'd earned through sacrifice most people couldn't imagine. District Attorney Robert Thompson was handling the case personally, having built his reputation on rooting out benefit fraud and protecting taxpayer money from what he called scammers and malingerers. At 52, Thompson had never served in the military but considered himself an expert on detecting deception. His aggressive prosecution of disability fraud cases had earned him praise from budget-conscious politicians and criticism from veterans advocacy groups. Thompson's approach to Maria's case was immediately confrontational. He'd reviewed surveillance footage showing her walking to her car, climbing stairs, and carrying groceries without apparent difficulty. In his mind, these activities proved that Maria was lying about her disability and stealing money from programs intended for truly deserving veterans. His opening statement was brutal in its skepticism. "Your Honor," Thompson announced with theatrical authority, "we're here today because Maria Santos has been collecting disability benefits while clearly capable of normal physical activity. She walks, she drives, she shops, she works part-time. This isn't disability. This is fraud, plain and simple." Maria's attorney, James Richardson, was a public defender with extensive experience representing veterans in disability cases. He'd seen Thompson's aggressive tactics before and knew the prosecutor's tendency to oversimplify complex medical conditions. Richardson understood that Maria's prosthetic leg wasn't immediately visible and that her injuries included traumatic brain injury and PTSD that affected her daily functioning in ways that weren't obvious to casual observation. "Your Honor," Richardson countered, "my client is a decorated combat veteran who lost her leg serving our country in Afghanistan. Her disabilities are real, documented by military medical personnel, and recognized by the Veterans Administration. Mr. Thompson's surveillance proves nothing except that my client refuses to let her injuries define her limitations." The hearing proceeded with Thompson presenting surveillance footage that showed Maria performing various activities. He narrated each clip with prosecutorial enthusiasm, pointing out her ability to walk distances, navigate stairs, and carry objects as evidence of fraudulent disability claims. His presentation was designed to make Maria appear deceptive and undeserving of benefits. When Thompson called Maria to testify, his questioning was immediately hostile. He demanded details about her daily activities, challenged her descriptions of pain and limitation, and repeatedly suggested that her claims were exaggerated or entirely false. His tone carried the implication that Maria was a criminal attempting to steal from honest taxpayers. "Ms. Santos," Thompson said with obvious skepticism, "you claim to be disabled, yet surveillance shows you walking normally, carrying heavy bags, even jogging occasionally. How do you explain this apparent contradiction?" Maria's response was measured but firm. "Sir, I do my best to live as normal a life as possible despite my injuries. Having a prosthetic leg doesn't mean I'm confined to a wheelchair. I've learned to adapt, but that doesn't mean I'm not disabled." Thompson's follow-up was brutal. "Adapt? You mean you've learned to fake a disability convincingly enough to fool the VA? Because from where I sit, you look perfectly capable of working full-time and supporting yourself without government assistance." The accusation hung in the air like a physical blow. Maria had spent years rebuilding her life after losing her leg, dealing with phantom pain, adjustment challenges, and the psychological trauma of combat. To have her sacrifices questioned by someone who'd never worn a uniform was devastating. Richardson objected to Thompson's characterization, but the damage was done. Thompson continued his assault on Maria's credibility, suggesting that her part-time work proved her capability for full employment and that her adaptive behaviors indicated fraudulent intent rather than remarkable resilience. His questions became increasingly personal and demeaning. "Mrs. Santos, isn't it true that you're simply taking advantage of a system designed to help truly disabled veterans? People who can't walk, can't work, can't function in society? You're taking resources away from soldiers who actually need help." Maria's composure finally cracked. "Sir, with respect, you have no idea what I've been through or what I deal with every day. I didn't choose to lose my leg in Afghanistan. I didn't choose to have nightmares about friends who died in that explosion. I didn't choose any of this." Thompson sensed weakness and pressed his advantage. "Ms. Santos, if you're truly disabled as you claim, why don't you prove it to this court? Show us this supposed prosthetic leg that's somehow invisible to our surveillance equipment." The challenge was delivered with calculated cruelty, designed to expose what Thompson believed was a lie. He expected Maria to make excuses or refuse, providing the dramatic moment that would prove his case to the judge and gallery. Instead, Maria stood up with quiet dignity. Without breaking eye contact with Thompson, she reached down and began unfastening her prosthetic leg. The courtroom fell silent as she carefully removed the device, revealing the scarred stump where her left leg had been amputated above the knee. The titanium and carbon fiber prosthetic, with its complex joint mechanisms and worn padding, told the story of years of adaptation and daily challenges that surveillance footage couldn't capture. The silence stretched as everyone in the courtroom processed what they were seeing. Thompson's face went pale as he realized the magnitude of his mistake. This wasn't a fraud case. It was the public humiliation of a combat veteran who'd sacrificed her body in service to her country. Judge Martinez spoke first, her voice carrying barely controlled anger. "Mr. Thompson, in 30 years on this bench, I've never seen such a disgraceful display of prosecutorial misconduct. This veteran has proven her disability in the most humiliating way possible because of your baseless accusations." Maria reattached her prosthetic with practiced efficiency, while Thompson struggled to formulate a response. His carefully constructed case had collapsed in seconds, revealing his fundamental misunderstanding of both disability and military service. Richardson seized the moment to present Maria's complete military record. Your Honor, Maria Santos served 3 combat tours as a medic with the 101st Airborne Division. She treated wounded soldiers under fire, earned a Purple Heart when an IED explosion took her leg, and received multiple commendations for valor. Her disabilities are documented by military physicians and recognized by the VA. The prosecutor's humiliation was complete when Richardson presented Maria's Purple Heart Medal and citation. Thompson had spent an hour attacking the credibility of a decorated combat veteran, questioning sacrifices he couldn't comprehend, and accusing someone of fraud who'd earned her benefits through blood and service. Judge Martinez's ruling was swift and decisive. This case is dismissed with prejudice. Mr. Thompson, your conduct today has been reprehensible. Ms. Santos, this court apologizes for the treatment you've received. Your benefits are confirmed, and I'm recommending that the DA's office review their procedures for veterans' cases. As the hearing concluded, Thompson approached Maria with what appeared to be an attempt at apology. She cut him off with quiet firmness. Sir, I hope you remember this moment the next time you consider questioning a veteran's sacrifice. Some wounds aren't visible, but they're real. The story of Maria's courtroom vindication spread throughout the veterans community and legal circles. It became a cautionary tale about the dangers of assuming fraud without understanding the complex realities of combat-related disabilities. Thompson's career suffered permanent damage from his public humiliation of a Purple Heart recipient. For Maria, the hearing represented a different kind of victory. She'd been forced to expose her most private struggle in the most public way possible. But she had also educated a courtroom full of people about the realities of combat injuries and the strength required to overcome them. Her quiet dignity in the face of prosecutorial abuse became an inspiration to other veterans facing similar challenges. The case led to policy changes in how disability fraud investigations were conducted, with enhanced training for prosecutors on military-related disabilities and requirements for medical expert testimony in veterans' cases. Maria's painful public moment had created systemic improvements that would protect other veterans from similar humiliation. Where are you watching from today? Tell us in the comments about a time when someone's assumptions about disability were proven wrong. Subscribe to Hidden Legends for more stories proving that visible strength often comes from invisible struggles.